At some point we all do it. We find ourselves staring up at the ceiling late at night, asking those really big questions. Why am I here? What's the whole point of all this? Is there some big purpose I'm supposed to be chasing? And yeah, they're huge, universal questions, and they can feel pretty overwhelming. But what if I told you there's an entire school of thought that's dedicated to tackling them head-on?
So let's just start with the biggest one, right here, right now. Why are you here? And I don't just mean watching this, I mean existing, in this world. It's not a trick question, I promise. It's actually the very first step on a journey to understanding how we can create our own motivation.
And the framework for this whole journey, well, it's a philosophy you've probably heard of, and maybe you think you know what it's all about: existentialism. Now, I know it gets a bit of a bad rap, but it's actually one of the most empowering ways to think about your life.
Yeah, when most people hear existentialism, their minds go to some pretty dark and gloomy places, right? Despair, dread, this idea that nothing really matters. But honestly, that's a huge misunderstanding. At its very core, existentialism is about the exact opposite. It's about the radical freedom you have, the courage it takes to live a real, authentic life, and your incredible power to create your own meaning from scratch.
So let's not think of this as some dusty, abstract philosophy. Let's treat it as a practical set of tools. Think of it as your own personal existential toolkit for building a life that actually feels meaningful to you. The first, and honestly the most important tool in this entire toolkit, is you. It's that simple. Existentialism insists that everything has to start with the individual. It puts your experience right now at the absolute center of the universe. It pushes you to ask these huge questions, not about people in general, but about yourself. Who are you? How do you become an individual?
All right, the next tool is basically the engine that drives this whole thing: free will. For existentialists, this is not just some nice idea. It's the main event of being human. It's your absolute, total freedom to choose your own path, your own goals, and to actually commit to them. And it's that power of choice that gives us our sense of dignity, our sense of worth, and makes our lives feel significant.
Now, when you're faced with that kind of absolute freedom, it can be a little scary, right? You realize your life isn't permanent. The world can feel chaotic. And in that moment of uncertainty, existentialism says we all face this one fundamental choice. Do we back away from it all, retreat into apathy, or do we find the courage to just be, to engage with life, to create, to truly live?
And the answer that existentialism gives is so empowering. It is, you are the creator of your own self. Simple as that. There's no pre-written script for your life. You're the one who chooses the goals. You're the one who assigns the meaning. And you're the one who commits to living it out.
So to help us figure this all out, let's bring in our first guide. He's a psychologist named Rollo May, and he gives us a really fascinating roadmap for this inner journey of creating ourselves.
Okay, so May made this one simple but really profound change to how we talk about this stuff. He felt the word being was just too static, too fixed. He liked the word becoming a lot more. For him, life isn't some destination you just arrive at. It's a constant, dynamic process of struggling, growing, and realizing your own potential, day by day.
And May actually laid out 4 stages of consciousness on this path of becoming. First up, we all start at innocence, when we're infants. Then we hit rebellion. You can probably picture the teenage years here, where we fight to find our own freedom. Most adults end up in the ordinary stage, where we learn from our mistakes and take on responsibility. But the real goal is to reach creative consciousness, a state of true maturity and self-realization.
Okay, our next guide, Viktor Frankl. He takes these ideas and forges them in the absolute most extreme circumstances you can imagine. He focuses on how we find meaning not just inside ourselves, but out in the world around us.
Frankl's story is just unbelievable. He was a psychiatrist who survived 3 years as a prisoner in Nazi concentration camps during World War II. And it was there, in the midst of unimaginable suffering, after losing his own family, that he developed one of the most powerful and hopeful theories of human motivation ever.
This quote, this gets right to the heart of everything Frankl believed. He saw that even when prisoners had lost literally everything, their homes, their families, their health, their dignity, there was one thing, one single thing the guards could never take away: their freedom to choose their attitude about what was happening to them. That internal choice, he realized, was the last and the greatest of all human freedoms.
So out of that horror, he developed his core idea, the will to meaning. He argued that what really drives us in life isn't the search for pleasure, it's the search for what we personally find meaningful. And he said there are basically 3 main ways to find it.
First, by creating something or getting a job done. Second, by truly experiencing something, like the beauty of nature, or by loving another person. And third, and this might be the most profound, by the attitude we choose to take when we're facing suffering that we just can't escape.
Now, that first path that Frankl talked about, creating a work or doing a deed, that's something most of us do every single day. We call it a job. And this brings up a really important question. Just how much does our work actually add to our overall sense of purpose in life?
Well, a study by researchers in Turkey decided to test this exact connection. They went out and surveyed over 200 employees from all sorts of companies. And they measured two things: how much purpose people felt in their lives and how meaningful they found their jobs. And the results? They were totally clear. They found a strong, positive link between the two.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's that finding meaning in what you do for a living isn't just some nice-to-have career perk. The data really seems to back up what Frankl was saying, that our work, the place where we create and contribute, can be a really powerful, direct path to living a more meaningful life.
And all of this, it brings us right back to where we started. It brings us back to you and the choices that you get to make.
You know, the message from deep thinkers like Rollo May and incredible survivors like Viktor Frankl is, in the end, a message of profound empowerment. The universe isn't just going to hand you a purpose on a silver platter. Instead, it hands you something much more powerful: the freedom, and yeah, the responsibility to create your own.
So, as we wrap this up, the final question isn't for me to answer, it's for you. Knowing that this freedom is completely yours, that the power to define your own existence is literally in your hands, what meaning will you choose to create?